Another quiet night at the office. No phone calls, no messages, nothing but junk mail and overdue bills to keep me company. Seems nobody wants to hire a real private dick anymore, a professional like me. A guy who does the detective work nobody else wants to do. A guy who wears hats and walks around in a black and white world. I began contemplating a more profitable line of work, like politics. We are the show you want to know. It's time to talk to you.
All right, folks. Good. All right, folks. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Monday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. I am Joe Mangiacotti, and Conrad's behind the glass flying the board today. Conrad, I crossed over on you or something there. Sorry about that. We got the right microphone. We're good to go. All right. So let's do some housekeeping. You can join the conversation for the next hour at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. Our text line is up and running at 617-297-8388. You can text like you would any number. It appears on the screen in the studio in real time, and we try to incorporate it into the conversation for those that can't make the phone call. A lot of people are whatever. Work or whatever. They don't even like to go on the air, Conrad. Some people are very shy. They're very microphone shy. Fortunately, you don't have that issue.
90% of us are.
That's true. Actually, less than 0.5% according to NAB research. Less than 0.5% of people who listen to talk radio will ever call talk radio. So a lot of people don't call, but you can do that at 508-871-7000. The station does stream 24/7 on the TuneIn app, so you can join us there. If you have the app or don't have it, take seconds to download it. Punch in WCRN, and you're going to see our little logo, our cool new logo. Do me a favor, hit the like button. We know you're there, and then we're very easy to find. I'm also streaming my show on my social media platforms, as well as the station's Facebook page and YouTube page. And if you haven't gone to the station's WCRN AM 830 page on Facebook, do me a favor, go over there, hit the like button and follow. We know you're there. And we're starting to increase the content. The Carr Brothers are streaming their show now. Freedom Health Radio is going to stream their show. We've got more and more hosts that are going to jump on that. It is Monday, May 5th, so Cinco de Mayo. And while Americans will be raising a glass to celebrate freedom from the French imperialism in Mexico, we've got to talk about our own struggles here to keep tyranny and lawlessness from seeping through our own cracks, folks. And you can join the conversation at 508-871-7000. All right. First, I think I want to talk about the wall comes with handcuffs now, because ICE arrests in Trump's 100-day mark. As we're past this, he's a little over 100-day, past his first 100 days, the second term, sequential. Only one other time has there been a president who's had a term in between, got reelected not consecutively. But he has refocused federal immigration enforcement under DHS and ICE, of course. We know this, but one of the major campaign promises was to restore law and order. The mantra now playing out via mass arrests of illegal migrants and criminal, or especially those with criminal records. And ICE enforcement and removal operations, ERO, as it's commonly known, have launched nationwide coordinated raids during this symbolic 100-day milestone. Booking photos of arrested migrants were posted around the White House lawn, if you remember that, serving both public warning and political message. And as you know, we had a few of the legacy media outfits, and CNN, MSNBC, they actually blurred these pictures. Now, we've been putting pictures of criminals in post offices for, what, a couple hundred years? But they decided to blur these out. And if you look at some of the crime, we're talking heinous crimes here, too. There's the assault and battery, there's rape, child rape. Some of the key facts here. We've had 150,000 alien arrests under Trump since January 20th. Including over 600 members of the Trinidad gang. Now, that's a violent transnational criminal group. In this past week alone, there were very high-profile arrests were made in Michigan, Texas, California, Massachusetts, folks, right here, Maryland as well. And again, these are crimes. And we're not talking about. Let's put a pin in the fact that it was criminal entry into the government, into the country. The crimes that these people who are legally here have committed include sexual assault of minors, child pornography, voluntary manslaughter, of course, gang affiliations, and repeat offenders have been released into sanctuary cities. And you know my feeling on sanctuary cities, it's a made up thing. It isn't a thing. There isn't a mechanism in our government. They just self-declare themselves. Worcester recently declared itself sanctuary city for transgender. I still don't understand what they were afraid of. Nobody's hunting transgenders. Nobody's locking up transgender people. So what exactly did you need a sanctuary? I'm not being facetious. I'm actually asking a legitimate question. 508-871-7000. What was the purpose of declaring Worcester, other than to the political statement? I get that. It's a dog and pony show. It's for theatrics of it. But how do you actually need a sanctuary city to exist for transgender people? Yeah, it doesn't. If somebody's bigoted to a transgender person, what the city government does isn't going to change that. It's not going to reprogram somebody who's bigoted. So I don't understand what it was, other than you take a little valuable time of the government and do this as again, theatrical. Now, DHS Secretary Kristi Noem, formerly South Dakota's governor, she said, if you are here illegally and break the law, we will hunt you down, arrest you, and lock you up. Unquote.
And then maybe send you to Alcatraz.
Yes, this is the other one. Sometimes it used to be I wasn't sure. It used to be I thought that Trump was just trolling and having fun when he'd say things that seemed a little, wow, that's an interesting thing. Now I'm not so sure that they're always kidding, because he floats this reopen Alcatraz. It's been closed for God knows I don't know how many years, and it's a tourist. I tried to go on the tour last time I was out there, but tickets were days in advance. I mean, if they were to do it, doesn't. I'm not bothered by the idea. I mean, it's an island, so it increases the security of anyone getting out. Now, I think there would be a fortune. You'd probably have to bring this up to current standards, remodel the thing, and all the systems, heating and sewer systems, water systems. But it's not outside the realm of possibility. I guess it could be done. I mean, we're spending $6 million to pay Venezuela to house criminals, quote unquote, there. So the Trump administration, DHS, and ICE showing aggressive action on illegal immigration and public safety. Some have historically refused to cooperate with ICE detainers. Now that also just blows my mind, and it's not being permitted like it was under the Biden administration. A couple of judges have been arrested last week. And we had Shelley Josephs in Massachusetts. When Biden was in office, she was actually headed to jail. And they stopped it. But I think she should have been. Because you cry, and the reaction, Conrad, on this, with the left on this, oh my God, they arrested a judge. These are the same people that just a year or more ago, their mantra was, no one is above the law. No one's above the law. We're going to bootstrap these weird charges that have never been used before and never have been used since, and ignore the statute of limitations to go after Trump. And then you got Letitia James, who ran for office on the campaign slogan of "I'll lock Trump up." Pure, show me the man or show me the person, I'll show you the crime. Not, I am going to root out crime and corruption, and wherever that leads me, I'll prosecute. No, I'm going to prosecute this guy. I'll figure out how to do it once you elect me. And this woman got elected on that. Remember that. Now, she's facing her own issues because of her actual mortgage fraud. Remember, they valued this, had the judge, valued Mar-a-Lago at $18 million. I think one of the chandeliers is worth 12. I mean, it's worth hundreds of millions. Probably one of the most expensive pieces of property there in that part of Florida. $18 million grossly. Then they were going after somebody who paid all the loans back with interest and early. And every one of the bankers involved in this said that we would love to do business again. So there were no victims because there was no crime. Stating what you think your property is worth, you're perfectly free to do that. I originated mortgages for years, folks. People tell you what they think the property is worth all the time because they use these really good nails and they have the better paint and all kinds of reasons why their property is better than the neighbor. But who determines the value of it is the lender. In your cost of refinancing, there's always an appraisal fee tucked in there. Now, depending what your loan to value ratio is, and quite frankly, your zip code. Based on where the property is, based on the amount of money that you want to borrow versus the thought to be value, they might do a simple thing called a drive-by. And they actually pay an appraiser to literally drive by and make sure there's a structure on the property that you want to mortgage. Because you're not asking for 90 or 100% of the value. It's in a zip code or address that is not known for high fraudulent activity. But that's the lender's risk. That's their decision. They do not take what you say my property is worth. They check it out for themselves. So that was asinine. But she claimed that a property in Virginia was her primary residence. She did that on multiple applications and mortgage forms for better favorable rates. That is absolutely up and up fraud. Now, immigrant communities are feeling pressure and fear amid heightened enforcement regardless of their status. And we're going to talk about the Border Patrol app in a second, but we're coming up to our first break here on the Monday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. That's 508-871-7000. Stick with us. We'll be back in 2 and 10, folks.
Having trouble with your cell phone? You need to visit Wireless World at 757 Grafton Street in Worcester. They fix any device, including cell phones, tablets, and computers, as well as game systems. Before you buy or replace it, bring it to Wireless World at 757 Grafton Street in Worcester. Need or want a new phone? You won't believe the prices at Wireless World, 757 Grafton Street in Worcester. Before you buy new or replace your current phone, check out Wireless World, 757 Grafton Street. That's Route 122 in Worcester.
Looking for a fuel and food stop that truly stands out? Experience the Yatco difference. At Yatco, we're dedicated to bringing you the best customer service, the highest quality products, and a commitment to making your life on the go easier. From top quality fuel to freshly stocked snacks and essentials, Yatco has you covered. Yatco has 15 convenient locations across central Massachusetts, and now our newest spot at 75 Quonsigamut Ave in Worcester. For Yatco rewards, simply download the Yatco app and sign up. Friendly, clean, local, and always convenient. Make Yatco your favorite food and fuel stop. Stop by Yatco food and fuel stations today and experience the Yatco difference. Yatco, where every stop keeps you going.
When you find yourself in a corner, you need someone who's got your back. Describe.ai is a natural language search engine that provides access to legal research when you need it the most. Powered by AI to help humans search more than 3 million judicial summaries in both English and Spanish. This app is completely free because access to justice is this company's why. Visit Describe.ai to find the case law that has your back. That's DESCRYBE.ai.
All right, folks, welcome back to the second segment of the Monday afternoon edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on Cinco de Mayo, folks. So happy Cinco de Mayo. And you can join the conversation for the remainder of the hour at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. Also reminding you, folks, that I do stream it, the show, the video. There's a camera here in the studio. To my social media platforms, which you can follow me at Joe Mangi Show, MANGI, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch TV, LinkedIn profile, and we are streaming to Rumble. There is a Joe Mangiacotti Show page on Rumble. You can check that out. Later, the show's loaded up to the streaming channel Twitch TV. So join me on the streaming as well. Broadcasting from our palatial, but not overly ostentatious studios in Westboro, Massachusetts today. Conrad behind the glass, which is we never get to work together on air because your Friday guy and the Carr brothers are on. So this is a novelty. We don't do this live show.
And the subject matter is completely different.
Than the Carr brothers? Yeah, you'd think those guys. Well, they got to do a little political because of tariffs. I think they were so excited to do something just outside of the traditional car talk, and they did a great job on the tariff stuff.
And the tariffs that generated more calls for them than any other show.
That's a big thing. I'm seeing. I collect cars. I have antique cars and stuff, so I'm always looking at like the marketplace and I've seen this now for a week or two. No tariffs here, looking at like 60s vehicles, 70s vehicles. No tariffs here. They're all going up the price. So, people are capitalizing on that. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. The text line is 617-297-8388. And 873 text us. Al Capone was the first prisoner at Alcatraz. A coincidence, the ass. JFK closed it in 1962. Now, have you noticed that all of these executive orders, everything from the Department of Education and different things that were created by former presidents with executive order decrees are somehow taboo for Trump to do it? We're back to this recurring theme among the left that they want to limit the powers of the office based on who's holding the office. It doesn't work like that. The office of the presidency is bigger than whoever holds it, bigger than any one man or woman, folks. 508-871-7000. Let's go to the phones. Mark has been waiting patiently. Hey, Mark, what say you? And happy Cinco de Mayo.
Well, how much do you know about Cinco de Mayo?
French Revolution.
Anything about it? Have you ever gone down to Sonora, Mexico?
No.
And be there for the Cinco de Mayo?
No. Have you? Is it crazy?
Yeah. So, anyways, you know what the main course is?
Corona beer?
Refried bean burrito.
Yeah.
That's the main course.
I know.
Real Mexican peasant food, and I got to tell you, it's absolutely delicious when it's made on site and made right by people who know what the hell they're doing. It's delicious. Yeah. Anyway, what I really called about, okay, was I heard a very interesting radio program on Saturday afternoon, local station. I won't give you the number on the AM dial because I don't think it's appropriate for me to do that. That being said, the moderator, like yourself, was having a telephone interview with somebody. I can't remember his name. And you know what that guy said? He said that the judge out Wisconsin that let the guy out the back door. Mm-hmm. What was her last name? Duggan or Dugan?
Yeah, something like that. Dugan, I think.
You know what he said? And I don't have an internet connection right now, but I can't confirm it. He said that same judge was a former director of, guess what? Catholic Charities. And I did, then I connect the dot. I wonder if Mr. Musk while he was doing his forensic deep dive into USAID. Is USAID funneling money in some way, shape, or form to Catholic charities?
Short answer is yes, Mark, they were. Catholic Charities was one of the biggest Hold on, let me fill in the listeners. They're not always up to date like you are, Mark. Catholic Charities was one of the biggest organizations to receive the money for illegals, for immigrants, once they reported to Border Patrol, to be housed, fed, and so forth. Catholic Charities received a tremendous amount of federal money, by the way, just so our listeners understand that.
Getting back to Judge Dugan, is that her name? Duggan?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, right. Yeah. We'll get back to the original thing. Was she former director of Catholic Charities? Is that in her past professional resume, being director of Catholic Charities? I can't confirm it, but it'd blow my mind if she was.
Well, right now, I think our research department is checking on this, meaning Conrad is Googling to see if we can find that. I haven't heard that yet, Mark, but it would be interesting to know.
But you know, you're a private investigator. You know what I'm talking about.
I do.
This is starting to smell, and not like roses either.
Nope.
Have a good one, brother.
Thank you, Mark. Always appreciate the call. So, Conrad, if you can find out if there's any connection. Yeah, there is. Yes, she was. So there you go. We were able to find evidence online that she was, in fact, the previous director of Catholic Charities. And again, they did receive a tremendous amount of money. And I hate to have to toot the on a horn here, but I got to go back a couple of years ago, even more than a couple of years ago, but at the beginning of the Biden administration, I sat in the same studio saying, keep an eye on NGOs. NGOs is the vehicle. NGOs, they may sound pretty cool, non-government organizations. Anything with non-government in front of it is usually pretty good because it means it's privatized. But when they're funded by taxpayer money, and the taxpayer money, the Constitution and all that goes with it should always be following the money. It goes. This is how a lot of arguments are presented, right? This is where the Supreme Court's dealing with, can taxpayer money go to Catholic or religious private schools under school choice programs? This is an answer or a question the SCOTUS is going to have to answer. Because the argument's always been, you can't use federal money for a Catholic school, separation of church and all. Now, I think that a lot of people blur that understanding of separation of church and state. What our founding fathers said and what they meant when this was part of the discussion at the time of the forming of the country was that there will be no official religion for the country or for a state. There won't be a religion that you must follow. Rhode Island was formed for religious freedom, right? You had a priest who went down and he bought what would be Providence, called Providence Plantations, so that he could practice, or he was under the, or not under, his stand was there should be absolute separation of church and state. But at the time of the founding of the colonies, religion was very much part of the government before the Constitution. So he went down to Rhode Island and he bought Providence Plantations, and then other religions started going to what we now know as Rhode Island. And I don't think it wasn't until, somebody can fact check me on this. I didn't know the conversation was going to go here, but I think it wasn't until 2020 that the official very long name of Rhode Island and Providence Plantations was dropped and shortened to just Rhode Island. Now, I know we all grew up in this area just calling it Rhode Island, but it actually, the name of it was Rhode Island in Providence Plantations was the original name of it. And I think it was as late as only 2020 or 2022 that it was actually officially dropped to just Rhode Island. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. And don't forget, we are streaming, or I'm streaming on my social media platforms at Joe Mangi Show. That's Facebook, X, also LinkedIn profile, Twitch TV, and Rumble. If you go to Rumble and just just put Mangiacotti or Mangi in there, and you'll get to the Joe Mangiacotti channel. Also, go to our station Facebook page. Do me a favor, go there, like it, follow us as we increase the content of that. 508-871-7000. Let's go to the phones. Tom, waiting patiently. Hey, Tom, what say you? And happy Cinco de Mayo, by the way.
Hey, how's it going? Also, did you know the state has the power to create a state religion? If they could say only one religion in Massachusetts, and you have to follow it. They have the power under the Constitution, was granted by the Constitution to the states.
I do not know this because we have separation of church and state, which literally
Only
says
federal,
that
only
there will
federal,
be no
federal.
official state religion.
Not
So
the
they
state,
can't.
federal.
So they, yes, federal. But the Constitution,
But
we have the
that's not the state.
Tom, we have a supremacy clause. The Constitution overrides state. So the federal position on this is there will be no official religion, nor can they force you to even have a religion. Just like
Yeah,
in
but
freedom
they
of speech, they
support-
can't force you to speak anything as well as you can say what you want, short of fire in a crowded theater.
Yeah, but they can support religion. Like all these parochial schools that went under, one of the baddest things they allowed happen. And now you got public schools is putting out criminals. A lot of criminals they're putting out. You never see criminals being put out of a parochial school. You don't see killers in parochial schools. They have ethics, morals, and honesty. That's the schools they should have supported, and they were letting them go under.
Well, Tom, I mean, I would venture to say if we did enough research, I'm sure we're going to find some criminals who happen to have gone to parochial or religious schools.
No,
I don't think they turn them out
school.
by design.
In school.
But
In
I think
school.
it's dangerous to say that they've never turned one out. I'm sure that there are some criminals who happen to have
in
gone.
life, yeah, in life, but not when they're going to school, like the public schools. You're having 10-year-olds killing their teachers. You're having high schoolers.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
Tom,
a lot
Tom,
of
it's
it. You
Tom.
don't see that
Thank you for the
before.
call. It's very, very interesting. We're against the clock, though. I got to take the bottom of the hour break, folks. We're coming up to that. I'm not sure about this. I'd like to see that where a state can have an official religion. It's absolutely in contradiction to our Constitution and the separation of state and church. But 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. 508-871-7000. We're going to take our mid-show break here, folks. We'll come back on the other side. Lines are open and available. This is the Monday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show. Back in 10, folks.
Time now for the forecast from the Boston Independence Group Weather Center. Call Jerry Doherty today at 877-772-1776. Retirement is within reach.
I'm meteorologist Sherry Spear, and here's the latest Boston 25 weather on Radio 830 WCRN. We've actually got several days of rain in the forecast today. Heaviest rain is going to be focused across central and western Massachusetts with more of a drizzle and an occasional shower in Boston. Temperatures also get stuck in the 50s today. Tomorrow's going to be a little warmer and muggier with temps back in the 60s, and we've even got 70 on the way on Wednesday. Problem is, on Tuesday and Wednesday, we've also got a better chance for some thunder, lightning, and downpours to accompany those showers. I'm meteorologist Sherry Spear, and you can hear Boston 25 live for the morning drive weekdays on AM 830 WCRN.
More live and local radio is next. Stay tuned to Radio Central 830 WCRN.
There's a threat targeting America, one that's growing fast, but may still be hard to see. Lyme disease. Spread by tiny ticks, often smaller than the head of a pin. This dangerous disease is now more widespread than West Nile, tuberculosis, and HIV/AIDS combined. And if left untreated, it can lead to arthritis, facial paralysis, and even memory and concentration problems, often called brain fog. As the threat of Lyme disease grows to more than 300,000 projected cases each year, it's time for us to target Lyme disease. That means checking for ticks when you've been outside, even in your own backyard. It means seeing a doctor if you experience the symptoms of Lyme disease, which can include joint pain, flu-like symptoms, fever, fatigue, or sometimes a bullseye-shaped rash. Set your sights on stopping Lyme. Learn how you can target Lyme disease at targetlime.org. Brought to you by the Stephen and Alexandra Cohen Foundation and this station.
All right, folks, welcome back to the second half of the Monday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on Cinco de Mayo. Happy Cinco de Mayo to you. And just go back to, what Mark was saying and so forth. That food, because I live with a Guatemalan, and the food they call it the peasant food. But yes, it's actually very good. I know it's very inexpensive and all that, but so I've never been into the refried beans and tortillas and guacamole and all that. Staple in my house now. And also, comrade, I find that, we're so politically conscious or correct here all the time. But when you talk to people from other countries, there are a tremendous amount of biases, and like Mexican and Guatemalans don't get along. It's like Chinese and Taiwanese, right? Do not call a Taiwanese person Chinese. They get very offended because of it.
I think those nuances, I think, are left out from us.
Yeah, we don't, because we're so worried about offending and being politically correct. But when I talk to a lot of people from parts of South America, and Guatemalans are not big on Mexicans, and they all look down on Puerto Ricans. And there's no apology about it. Straight up, yes. But I also noticed in that culture, like nicknames, they're very common. That the nicknames they'll give you is like your least flattering feature becomes your nickname. So if you're kind of heavy, you automatically become gordo, which is Spanish for large or fat. And if you're skinny, you're flaco. And if you have a big forehead, you're going to get nicknamed based on, so they nickname you on whatever your worst feature is. But they're very, my experience, and like I said, I live with a Guatemalan who just tells me the culture and how they look at things. So I find it very interesting because we're so hypersensitive, right, and politically correct. Yet you go to other cultures and communities or countries, and Mexicans are this, El Salvadorians are this, and then the language, it's all Spanish, but it all sounds a little different. Your mic's off.
That's interesting.
It is interesting because every Mexican, Guatemalan, El Salvadorian I speak to, they all say the same thing about Cubans. They can't understand, even they can't understand the Cuban Spanish. And then they all seem to have a problem with Puerto Rico. Now, I don't know if it has to do with a territory of the U.S. or just that it's a mixture of things. I have no idea. But it's very interesting that they have no apologies about their biases at all. And they stand by them, as a matter of fact. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Let's go to the phones. Ken has been waiting patiently. Hey, Ken, happy Cinco de Mayo.
Same to you.
Are you going to tip her, Corona or a margarita later?
Well, I might have Corona. I do have that in the refrigerator. We'll see.
Good.
But, previous caller Tom.
Yeah. I knew someone, and I thought it might have been you. Go ahead. What do you have to say about that?
He is absolutely correct.
A state can have a religion.
So let me explain. Think back. When the colonies were formed, were they all equal, all thinking the same way?
Oh, God, no. Which is why Rhode Island got formed. Again, and I'm trying to remember the name of the priest. It will come to me in a second. That went and bought all that land, which is what we would call Northern Rhode Island. Even touches of Connecticut and Mass were in it. It was called Providence Plantations. And he left because Massachusetts and Connecticut, for that matter, were religion. I mean, you belonged. You were treated very badly, right, if you didn't belong to a certain religion. So Rhode Island was formed for this purpose, to separate church and state. So yes, in the early days, Ken, absolutely. Which is why I think we have the separation of church when we became a country.
No, we don't have separation of church and state. That's fake news, as Trump would say.
Again,
so let's
wait a minute. It goes back to what we say is that we won't have an official. It doesn't mean that you can't have them cross over. After all, we put "In God We Trust" on our money for a while, right? We had it in a House of Representative chamber at one time. It used to say over the door when you went into the chamber, "In God We Trust." Nancy Pelosi removed it. So that it's not that there hasn't been a mixture. What it says is we won't have an official religion that you're forced to practice.
All right. So here's the distinction. You've described much of the history, because this nation, especially the northern states, people flocked to those states to escape the religious persecution that they were having, which included a great-grandfather of mine way back in the 1590s, famous Anne Hutchinson, his daughter, I'm related to, who came here to escape the religious persecution. And as a consequence, there tended to be specific states that adopted specific religions and literally had it in their own constitution that this is our official religion of our state, and was the primary reason why, when it came time to create a unified constitution, they insisted that there cannot be a federal religion, the Establishment Clause, because guess what? I'm religion A, you're religion B, the other one's religion C, and we're not going to have a war over religion. Because guess what? That's what was going on. So that's the story that's not told by the media, and is so important to our history and understanding how important religion is. So,
well, religion was always the undercurrent theme of everything. I mean, including from the Pilgrims, right? Fleeing for religious persecution, being able to practice. It was the part of the gravitation to the New World, was knowing that you had this option in religion freedom. But that did not prevent certain communities from being a religion that was the dominant, if not required. But again, those were in the early days.
Right.
Now, we've got, again, because the Constitution, we have the supremacy clause and it does supersede state law. I think it would be pretty hard for a state today.
So there's the story of that history, 18th century, 17th and 18th century. So I believe there was one or two states at the very founding of our country that had a state religion. I believe Maryland was one of them. And then it went away very quickly.
But Ken, we got to remember, the United States of America wasn't even an idea in these days, right? So when we say before, in the early part of the founding, we were a colony of Britain, and the country wasn't even an idea until, of course, our founding fathers decided enough and broke off and seceded. But so all that was going on was kind of norm. It was, they fled for religious freedom, yet they invoked the same principle of following. You have to belong to this religion to live in this community. You see the irony there?
Oh, I know very directly.
Yeah.
My story of Anne Hutchinson, she fled for religious freedom.
Right.
Guess what?
Isn't there a statue of her in Boston?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Her and her daughter, who's a direct lineage to me. So literally, her daughter barely survived. She was the redhead 9-year-old that was part of the family. Everyone was scalped by the local Indians. She was saved because of her red hair. They'd never seen it before.
That's amazing.
Her older brother, they had 13 or 11, and so she had a brother that was almost 20 years older. He was on his own. So about a year after all the other clan were killed, he paid ransom to get his sister back, and she went on to live a long life and have many kids herself.
Red hair. Imagine, of course, I'm assuming the Native Americans probably very, they're black hair, very darker features. Yeah. So that would have been absolutely foreign to them and saved their life. That's a fantastic story.
She was just out picking berries.
Yeah.
And all the rest got scalped, and they came across her, and they said, well, I think we'll keep her.
They probably thought that they would be pissing off a god or something.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
they
like,
kept the
all
phone.
right, you scalper. No, you scalper. I ain't scalping her. My crops will die. My horses will fall. No, I'm not doing it. Yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing. There was that time in the history, right here, even in New England, we had a lot of tribes. And think about this for a moment, because there was a time where the country was young and we still had Native Americans living, not on reservations yet, but trying to coexist on the land that we were, spreading onto and so forth. And here in New England, a cousin of mine is a Xavier brother, and he used to be the principal of the school in Boxborough. They had a home that they lived in, and I used to love to visit him there because it was a very old house. I'm not sure what year it was built, but they had the defensive shutters still in the house that were designed to stop arrows from penetrating the windows. And then a lot of these old buildings, when you see you could tell there was a window there, but it's been boarded over or bricked over. It's a look you see in Boston. That was actually the tax, the window tax the king had put on. They were taxing, and this is what led to taxation without representation. But one of the taxes was, let's get the rich, because they had windows. So you had to pay a tax for every pane of glass. So that's why you see all these older homes where they just boarded up the windows instead of paying tax on it. Yeah, it's crazy.
Early day tax evasion.
Yeah, exactly. It was your responsibility to legally not pay taxes, but they'd rather go without the window than have to pay for a tax to literally have a pane of glass. Crazy.
Absolutely amazing.
So,
But nonetheless, life goes on, and boy, do we have so many legal stories to talk about for months and months.
well, I mean, Massachusetts, right? The old blue laws here that, some of them were crazy. I think it was Weld Salucci who purged a lot of them. But we had, it was illegal to spit on the sidewalk. At one time, there's a law in Massachusetts books that required you to carry a long-barreled rifle gun to church. Now, this is a time where you could come across Indians, wild animals, whatever, and the law was you had to carry a long-barreled gun, meaning a rifle, when you took your family to church to protect them. I mean, that was on the books. It wasn't until at least 20 years ago. I don't know if it's been removed, but fascinating laws. But we're against the clock, Ken. Thank you for the call. Always appreciate it. All right, folks, we're going to take a third break, come back with our fourth and final segment here on Cinco de Mayo Monday, back in 2 and 10.
Polar Park is the place to play, so treat yourself to a private suite at the best ballpark in AAA. Suite rentals are the best way to enjoy a fully catered and climate-controlled experience at the park. Whether you choose to watch the game from inside of the suite or out in your seats, it's the ultimate experience for a special occasion. Visit WooSox.com or call 508-500-8888 to reserve your suite today.
Perner Logging and Land Clearing, fully equipped with state-of-the-art equipment to handle all of your lot and land clearing needs, whether it's 1 acre or 100. They regularly service customers in the local area and will travel to neighboring communities and beyond to get the job done. Now, whether you're doing new construction, renovations, or clearing land for a new development, the Perner Logging and Land Clearing team of experienced personnel makes small or large jobs run efficiently, giving them the ability to always keep the competitive edge. They'll quote your job from something small to hundreds of acres, factoring in all aspects, including the wood salvage value, if any. In addition, they have the right equipment for each size job, making for the most efficient job site possible. For every job, Perner Logging and Land Clearing make sure the client's goals are the main objective. Call Perner Logging and Land Clearing today for a free estimate, 978-270-9916. That's 978-270-9916.
Looking for a station that brings you all sides of the story? Tune in to 50,000 watt powerhouse WCRN, where the left and the right meet in the middle. Whether you lean left, lean right, or just want to stay informed, WCRN has you covered with diverse voices, lively debates, and thought-provoking discussions. From politics and health to pop culture, you'll hear it all right here. Radio Central, where opinions from both sides come together for the conversations that matter. From the center of the dial, the center of New England, and the center of information, AM 830, WCRN, Radio Central.
All right, folks, welcome back to the fourth and final segment on this Monday afternoon, Cinco de Mayo. Are you celebrating? I know it's a big, good. Here's a question, Conrad. Do we consume more alcohol on St. Patrick's Day or Cinco de Mayo? I'm wondering.
Great question.
Because we have so much Irish dissension here, right? Or descendant. By the way, so I was in D.C. last week for a few days. One of the things I did do was invited to the Irish ambassador's residence. So I was there Tuesday night when it was very nice, beautiful residence, right? These homes in D.C. that they belong right down the street was the Italian residence. Turkish was next. It was just phenomenal, and they have these beautiful gardens. It was very nice. My sisters and I have all decided to get our Irish citizenships too, dual citizenships, because if you're parents are grandparents, and you can do that. But yeah, a beautiful property and a very nice time there. So that was good. But one of the things I was talking with the ambassador about, being from Boston, is, and I said to her, there's a lot of people, and she shot right back at me and she said 4.2 million. Like off the top of her head. Apparently this was something she was already aware of. But during the potato famine, there was a huge influx of Irish came to Boston, in the Boston area, settled here. So we just have so many people. And then I think my parents' generation, Irish and Italian, and they weren't supposed to mix back in those days. And I still swear that part of the attraction of my mother to my father was they weren't supposed to mix. And he had the private parochial Catholic schoolgirl versus the Italian bad boy. I think that was a lot of the attraction going on. My father was the cigarette rolled up in the t-shirt, Indian motorcycle, and he had a monkey as a pet. I mean, this is a lot, right? A monkey. I have pictures of my father riding his motorcycle with the monkey sitting in the back with the hands around my dad.
He sounds like a character.
It was crazy. But so the Irish Italian combination is very big in the Boston area. In my generation, there's a lot of people in my generation that are half and half, and and I often meet, and obviously my father's the Italian, my mother's the Irish side of that, but interesting nonetheless. 508-871-7000. So the question is, what day do we consume more? Probably more beer and maybe margarita. Well, there's Irish a lot of beer. That's a hard one. I guess the restaurant industry could probably tell us the liquor sales for those
maybe
times.
I'll go to artificial intelligence here.
Ask AI, chatbot or one of those. I don't even know. There's a lot of AIs out there now, right? And there was something that just came out. Oh, did you catch this? Texas, they voted to change the Starbase Texas. Elon Musk, who moved first the Cybertruck factory out there, and now he's got other buildings because, California, he basically left California because of the high regulation and taxes, of course. And Texans are very independent people, but they voted to rename the community around X as Starbase Texas. Starlink is the big black building, right? That's the big, massive building you see there. But he employs just thousands and thousands of people, and they decided to rename that community. And what he's doing is they're building more and more housing. So this kind of heralds back to the day. And look at, even in Worcester, there are whole communities in Worcester that the local factory, in other words, the manager, they build the communities for all the factory workers, sometimes lived in company housing. The factory would own the housing and you live there. And over the time, they then sold them off. And maybe if you were management or upper management and you had one of the nicer houses on the west side or something like that. But it's kind of along the same lines. They're building all of these homes, new construction in and around where Starlink, Cybertruck, and Tesla is. And they renamed it. They just renamed it Starbase. So you can live in Starbase, Texas now. And of course, it has to do with SpaceX as well. Because they have a big
100-foot bust of Mr. Musk.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, there is. There's a big bust of Elon out front. So anyway, that's interesting because he already has. I think he already has a name for the community on the moon. So these Tesla homes, I think they're about $75,000 or $80,000 that you can buy now, and they come all pre-assembled. You just hook up electricity and water and stuff. I think they were actually a byproduct of him figuring out housing on the moon, or eventually, of course, we know he wants to do that with Mars. 508-871-7000 and join the conversation. Back to my original thoughts on the opening of this. So the sanctuary cities, the arrests. So I'd previously been detained or released under the sanctuary city policies. And now we see judges being arrested for crossing the line. They broke the law. They orchestrated escape, knowing that there's either warrants and or detainers on these people. And you got Mario Alexander Loomis here in Boston. He was just arrested. Or he was arrested in 2018, but released here in Massachusetts despite very serious charges. And they did rearrest him this past week. And then you got the critics about the photos in the White House lawn, which it seems like they always want to change the rules or have special rules when it comes to illegals. One of the most popular TV shows we ever had was America's Most Wanted, where we actually recreated the crimes and showed whatever pictures we had and turned the entire country into tipsters. So we have been using, for crying out loud, part of the arrest process, folks, is to take a mugshot, which they were very keen on doing to President Trump, right? Which he has turned around and has a copy of it beautifully framed right outside the Oval Office. And I believe he did quite a bit of merchandise with it. But why do we take a mugshot? So we have a picture of what they look like. Did we have to take one with Trump? One of the most recognizable people on the planet? I'm not sure there was going to be a big manhunt for Donald Trump at any time, but they did do it. They took it, they fingerprinted him, and they went through the whole process.
The compelling question you had is Cinco de Mayo far exceeds St. Patrick's Day.
Now, is that countrywide? Would it change in Boston?
This is countrywide.
Countrywide. See, I would argue that it would be much closer, if not even surpass it in Boston. I think Boston is very unique, and we do. I mean, New York does too. But Boston is a crazy, right? I mean, the whole weekend closest to it is a big weekend. So, but
Question for you is, what's number one?
Well, Cinco de Mayo is.
Well, in terms of total holidays.
Oh, yeah. Because then you got to add New Year's. Although I don't think New Year's is the type of drinking night it used to be. I mean, when I was a kid, everybody got blitzed out. And with the drunk driving laws today, and just it's not worth it. I don't think people do that kind of thing anymore.
The night before Thanksgiving, Joe.
Thanksgiving Eve. Yeah, that is.
They call it Drinksgiving.
Drinksgiving. And it's a big movie night, by the way. Did you know that? That Thanksgiving night before, and it's a big club night. Now, it makes sense if you think about it, because how many younger people, right, are the 20-year-olds and so even 30, come back for Thanksgiving? So you come back the day before, and by 7 or 8 o'clock at night, you need to get out. You got to get out of the house for a little while, and either you go to the movies or you go out to the clubs. And back when in my youth, when I lived in Boston, it was a big, big party night was the night
You got
before
it dead
Thanksgiving.
on. AI is saying that's the exact reason.
It is. Okay, yeah. I think that's just we don't need artificial intelligence to tell us a common sense thing that great to see you, Mom and Dad. I'm just going to go out for a few hours and you come home after they've gone to bed. But yeah, it's a big club night, Thanksgiving Eve, absolutely. So the critics argue that this amounts to public shaming and politicizing justice. Again, you're latching on to something. We've had wanted posters in the post office for decades. We take people's pictures. We put sketches of would-be muggers. No. And these are people who have been charged and convicted of heinous crimes. So knock it off. And then there's the issue of this due process. And I mentioned this before. The left and the media on the left keeps talking about due process. It's in one of the new buzzwords that we're using. And I think the implication they're trying to put forward when they say this is that they're supposed to have this big, long criminal trial. In due process just means you would do the legal process that is applicable to your situation. And this is, majority of the time, this is a civil issue, not a criminal, until they commit one of these heinous crimes. But the immigration issue is a civil issue, and due process could be nothing more than the right paperwork that you're doing. And the irony of this, it was Barack Obama who changed the legislation of being able to deport without having an immigration hearing. So it was a Democrat's executive order and policy change that actually allows you to, not to mention the Enemies Act of 1798. But due process just simply means that the process is done to kick you out of the country. And you don't get the hearing unless you've done the official request and claim of asylum. Now, majority, I'm talking like 90 somewhat % of asylum cases are rejected because we got to go back to the idea of asylum is you need a safe sanctuary, a safe port. And international maritime law says that when you flee the first safe port of entry, that's where you seek asylum. You can't leave, say, Haiti, live somewhere in South America for 10 years, and then a Democratic, absentee president comes in, changes the policy. Oh, now it's time to go live in America. That's not asylum. You got your asylum in the country you've been living in for 10 years. You're not running. And if you have to travel to 3 or 4 countries to reach America to request asylum, it's not really asylum, folks. This is going to wrap up the Monday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN actually Monday through Thursday at 1 o'clock. And you can join me and follow me at Joe Mangi, M-A-N-G-I, Joe Mangi Show on social media. All right, folks, I'll be back tomorrow afternoon at 1 o'clock here at AM 830 WCRN, Radio Central. Joe out.
This is Radio Central, 830 WCRN, Worcester.